there's something most people never talk about, but experience every single day. That constant voice running commentary in your head. While most people think talking to yourself is a sign of madness, you've sensed there might be something deeper going on with this constant internal conversation. Do you find yourself rehearsing conversations, working through problems silently, or giving yourself pep talks throughout the day? What if I told you that this inner voice isn't just normal? It's actually one of your greatest superpowers when you learn to use it correctly. What I'm about to share will transform how you understand and harness this mysterious force that shapes every aspect of your daily experience. Here's what most people don't realize about their inner voice. You spend between 1/3 and 1/2 of your waking hours not focused on the present moment. Instead, your mind is drifting. And during that time, you're having conversations with yourself that are far more powerful than you might imagine. This inner voice isn't just random mental chatter. It's your ability to use language silently to reflect on your life, plan for the future, and make sense of your experiences. When you go to the grocery store and repeat your shopping list mentally, when you rehearse what you'll say in an important conversation, or when you give yourself encouragement before a challenge, that's your inner voice at work. Think of it this way. Your inner voice is like having a built-in coach, strategist, and storyteller all rolled into one. It helps you keep information active in your mind, simulate different scenarios, motivate yourself through difficult moments, and create the narratives that shape your sense of identity. But here's where it gets complicated. This remarkable tool often turns against you precisely when you need it most, creating what we could call the dark side of inner dialogue. If you're still here, you've probably recognized that your inner voice can be both your greatest ally and your harshest critic. The fact that you're curious about understanding this internal dynamic tells me you're ready to learn how to work with your mind rather than against it. If this is resonating with you, please subscribe. Let me show you exactly what happens when this powerful tool starts working against you instead of for you. You know those moments when you're trying to work through a problem, but instead of finding solutions, you get stuck in negative thought loops? Or when you catch yourself saying things like, "I'm such an idiot," over and over again. That's what happens when your inner voice transforms from a helpful guide into destructive chatter. This mental chatter affects you in 3 crucial ways. First, it hijacks your attention, making it nearly impossible to focus on what you're actually trying to do. You might read an entire page of a book only to realize you absorbed nothing because your inner voice was too busy replaying an argument from yesterday. Second, chatter creates friction in your relationships. When your inner voice is stuck in negative loops, you often feel compelled to share these concerns with others repeatedly, which can push away people who genuinely care about you, but can't handle the constant negativity. Third, and perhaps most importantly, this kind of destructive inner dialogue keeps your stress response activated, creating physical wear and tear on your body that contributes to everything from cardiovascular problems to weakened immunity. Right now, take a moment to notice what your inner voice has been saying while you've been listening to this. Has it been commenting on the content? Agreeing or disagreeing? Making connections to your own experience? This awareness, simply noticing that inner conversation happening in the background, is the first step toward harnessing this power consciously. Most people go through their entire day without ever becoming aware of this constant internal dialogue that's shaping their reality. Here's where the research reveals something fascinating about how you can transform your relationship with your inner voice. Scientists have discovered that the way you talk to yourself, specifically the pronouns and perspective you use, dramatically affects how helpful that inner dialogue becomes. When you're facing a challenging situation and your inner voice uses I statements like, "I can't handle this," or "I always mess things up," you're stuck in your own emotional experience. But something remarkable happens when you shift perspective and start addressing yourself by name or using you. Like, "Sarah, what would be the wise thing to do here?" Or, "How can you approach this differently?" This creates what researchers call distanced self-talk, and it literally changes how your brain processes the situation. This shift works because humans are naturally much better at giving advice to others than taking their own advice. When you use your name and you're tricking your brain into relating to yourself as if you were counseling a friend, which allows you to access wisdom and perspective that remains hidden when you're caught in first-person emotional reactivity. This isn't just a psychological trick. It's a scientifically validated way to harness your inner voice's power constructively. But there's an even deeper dimension to working with your inner voice that goes beyond just changing pronouns. Your inner voice is constantly creating the stories that define who you think you are. Every conversation you have with yourself is either reinforcing old narratives or creating new ones. When you catch yourself saying, "I always do this," or "I'm not the type of person who," you're not just describing reality, you're actively creating it. The most profound shift happens when you start to recognize that you are not your inner voice. You are the awareness that can observe it. This recognition creates space between you and your thoughts, allowing you to choose which inner conversations to engage with and which ones to simply let pass by. When you develop this kind of conscious relationship with your inner dialogue, you stop being at the mercy of whatever your mind happens to generate. Instead, you become the director of your internal experience, capable of guiding your thoughts toward patterns that actually serve your growth and well-being. Here's how to start harnessing your inner voice more consciously. First, practice distanced self-talk. The next time you're facing a challenging situation, instead of asking, "What should I do?" try asking, "What would be wise for your name to do here?" Or, "How can your name handle this skillfully?" Notice how this simple shift changes your perspective on the situation. Second, become your own wise counselor. When you catch your inner voice being self-critical, imagine you're talking to a good friend facing the same challenge. What would you say to them? Then offer yourself that same compassion and wisdom. Third, use your inner voice for conscious preparation. Before important conversations or events, instead of letting your mind create anxious scenarios, consciously rehearse positive outcomes. Visualize yourself handling things well and speaking the words you want to say. Fourth, practice perspective taking throughout your day. When you notice your inner voice getting caught in negative loops, step back and ask, what would someone who loves me say about this situation? This helps you access more balanced and supportive internal dialogue. Finally, remember that changing your inner voice is like training a muscle. It takes consistent practice, but the effects compound over time. Over the next few weeks, you'll start noticing the quality and content of your inner voice throughout the day. Instead of being unconsciously swept along by whatever thoughts arise, you'll catch yourself and consciously choose more supportive internal dialogue. Within a month, you'll discover that your inner voice has become a genuine ally rather than a source of stress. You'll find yourself naturally speaking to yourself with the same kindness and wisdom you'd offer a good friend. The stories you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible will shift toward greater self-compassion and empowerment. If this understanding of your inner voice as a tool you can consciously direct rather than something that just happens to you resonates with your experience, you're exactly who this channel is for. People who are ready to develop a more conscious and supportive relationship with their own minds. If this shifted how you think about that constant internal conversation, subscribe to join others, discovering that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. And it starts with how you choose to speak to yourself each day.